I
Okay,
don't know. Was I supposed to say some more? Okay.
whatever you want to make it.
Okay.
So I'm gonna start with our first question.
Okay.
Can you give us a brief overview of Fragile and the inspiration behind it?
Sure. I would say that Fragile was inspired by my own life and working through my own trauma and my own experiences. And I must say first that I am not a professional researcher, but the research that I've done for this project, like I said, came from my own life experiences and also a lot of the women of color that I've worked with who have dealt with trauma, and being in the space and experiencing their trauma through the body, through movement, trying to find different ways to help them through their process in terms of being vulnerable through their body in the space, and just experiencing sometimes a lot of things where they might get in the space, but maybe not feel as free in their body or in their movement because something was holding them back, and a lot of times I found, even for myself, that we hold things in our body. We hold emotions, we hold memories, we hold feelings. And for me, the body is carries your history, you know what I mean? It carries, it's a language, it speaks, about your life. And so I will always tell my students sometimes, and even for myself, recognize that, well, it doesn't matter sometimes what you're saying verbally and what's coming out loud, like how you feel about yourself internally and what voices have been taking residence in your life and in your body is what we will see in the space, right? When we get ready to dance with you. And so, like I said, it was from my own experience and me not valuing myself and allowing people to speak into my life that really had no place to. And yeah, it's a healing journey for me. And I recognized that it was healing for other people too. And so, yeah, this would inspire me to want to do this.
Speaking of like other people, do you draw any inspiration specifically from the work you do at NC State in those environments?
Um, from you mean the work that, like, with my students and stuff like that? I draw inspiration from my students, from their lives and from their stories. I like to um, tap into the human experience. A lot of times, and I dance sometimes even in training and very presentational and entertaining. And sometimes we forget human aspects of ourselves and the human spirit. And so for me, I like to use what my students are dealing with and what they may be going through. And when they come into the space, I always would ask them to use that as an opportunity to delve deeper into the choreography and the work, instead of doing what I was taught sometimes in dance was, hey, when you come into the studio, you leave your stuff at the door and then you come in and dance. And I don't want them to leave their stuff at the door. I want them to bring it in the room. But if they bring it in, I always tell them, you got to be willing to work through it. Even if you don't want to talk to me, work it out through the body, something, you know what I mean? And it looks different for everybody. It could be that today, hey, I'm not putting as much energy, or where was I striving more than really allowing myself to be vulnerable? Maybe it's taking a quiet space for a second during warm up, and whatever that looks like for them, I like to use it to help them find healing through the work. Yeah.
Next question is, do you think women of color carry an extra burden on top of their individual trauma?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh yes, that is why I did this. That's one of the reasons I used as well, or was really inspired from what Erin Allen Kane put in her caption when she wrote the song and had a video about the song Fragile, you know what I mean? And she was just talking about like how, you know what I'm saying, like a lot of times as women of color, like we put aside our own stuff, you know, to take care of everybody else. I mean, I saw my mother do it. I saw a lot of the women in my family do it, you know, and when we're passionate about something or we decide to speak out, you know, oh, you loud, oh, you angry, what's wrong with you? You know, all of those different things when we decide to use our voice. And I definitely feel like our healing as people of color, period, particularly Black people, you know, and like to put healing to the side, you know what I'm saying? And especially to me with being a woman, you know, I think a lot of times people want us to be vulnerable as Black women and, you know, but we sometimes there's this stereotype of you got to be strong, you got to be hard, you got to, you know, and there's room for us to be vulnerable too. You know what I mean? And I think people want us to be vulnerable, but I don't feel like there's always a space created for that. So you want to see it, but as soon as I feel like we show it, then it makes people uncomfortable, you know? And I feel like a lot of times, sometimes when you really have to sit with people's trauma, when you really have to sit with people's grief, or even their vulnerability, it can be a really uncomfortable thing. And I don't think everybody likes feeling that, you know what I mean? And I recognize that even with myself, you know, when you let that guard down and you show that, and based off of how people respond, it's an open invitation to give more or to pull back, you know, and be like, well, you can't really handle this, so I'm not gonna give you too much. Yeah.
For you, why is it important to highlight how trauma impacts our physical beings?
Because otherwise I feel like we're not really free. I don't really believe that we're free to live, free to make choices, free to say no, free to set boundaries, if we don't address what's in the body. And I feel like sometimes there's a lot of times that we hold on to things to the point where it stops us from taking risks. It stops us from moving forward. And I can speak to that personally. It has done that, you know, for me. And I remember even my mom telling me one time, she was like, you know, sometimes I know you say this might have stopped you or that might have stopped you, and you're still doing it anyway, even though people told you certain things about yourself or whatever. But the crazy part is I didn't know I was free, right? And so that was the difference. Like, people might have perceived that based on what moves I was making and what I was doing, but I know that I was still carrying a lot of stuff, and I feel like you can't really be free if you're still holding on to things, especially stuff that's not yours.
Yeah. And healing was one of the main themes in Fragile. What do you think is the biggest obstacle when it comes to healing among like women of color, Black women?
I guess too, in even me doing personal research, um, just research in general, some things out there for us, and considering our background, our history, the diaspora in general, in terms of healing models and tools and practical things put into consideration instead of um, yeah, like even just in doing the research, I'm like, wait, hold up, where's the research for us? Well, where's, you know, the this for us, or did we get studied for this, or you know what I mean? Like, and I think too that I know because my master's is in mental health counseling, and even studying it in school, it wasn't a lot of things in terms of me studying Black psychologists or or other therapists or different things like that that had models for us to follow, or different things, just taking into consideration our culture, what moves us, what doesn't move us. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that that definitely gets in the way, or is a hindrance in terms of our healing. And then when that happens, I feel like then we have to find our own stuff. And not to say that that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing, and I feel like right now more than ever, we delving into that in ways that we haven't before, because it's like, wait, hold up, we don't have it, And so for me, I feel like as a people, the arts has always been a way, through song, through dance, and the storytelling, different things like that has always been healing for us. But I feel like there need to be even more substantial things put in place, for us as well. So, yeah.
Would you say that movement and dance is like a crucial element to healing? And if so, why?
Yes. Well, and I mean, everybody's different, but I mean, we move every day. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you got to move, you move in your sleep sometimes, you move as simple as to go to the bathroom, you move to get out the house. And what I've noticed too, even for myself, is when I've been depressed, or I've been struggling through things, I didn't want to move, you know what I mean? Like, I wanted to be still. But when I pushed myself, you know what I mean, it felt good, at least for the moment. And so to me, movement and dance can definitely be healing. I've seen it change how people see themselves. I've seen it with my students at the school, just in them taking a dance class, them completely change their major just based off of what was done in the class. And I feel like I tell the students all the time, like, the tools that you learn in here could be things that could be used practically every day. You learn about yourself, how you transition, what makes you nervous, what you're uncomfortable with, what part of your body, you're not comfortable moving. In the past, I've had literally, unfortunately, some people run out of the classroom because I asked them to move some part of the body, not different instances, or cry because I used a word or pointed to a certain part of their body and asked them to move it. You know what I mean? And so for me, I feel like the body is a voice. And so even if you're not ready to speak, I feel like the body can help you speak and talk through things through your body. And then later, I've noticed that it helped give people language later on to verbally speak. So yeah, it's important to me. Yeah.
The next question is, what do you hope the audience takes away from Fragile?
I think the biggest thing that I want them to take from it, like for me, I just looked at it to be that this was a seed, that I was just planting for women of color, but for anybody of color, or just anybody in general that watches it, that, hey, even if, like, I don't think by the end you're going to be completely healed, but hey, if you are, I love that too. But meaning that I hope it's a seed that's planted in your life, that you actually begin to really delve into your own healing, that you would take that journey with yourself, that you would sit with yourself, that you would listen to yourself and your body, and see what it looks like for you. There's a lot of different ways that people say, hey, this works, and do this and do that. But what I've learned is that only works so far, and you have to figure out what works for your unique design. Everybody is different, you know what I mean? And so for me, like I said, the biggest thing that I want people to take away is like, hey, what do I need to do next to delve even further into this healing for myself? Yeah.
Next question is, when did you discover your love dance?
Oh, I've been dancing since I was 2. And I asked my mom a question about that because I heard somebody speaking one time, and they said, you know, sometimes parents like push children in a direction they want them to go, or what area they wanted them to be gifted in. And my mom, I asked her, what made her put me in dance, and she was like, it was you. She was like, you were moving, you were dancing around. So I was like, well, hey, I got to, you know, put her somewhere. And at first I was like, really? Like 2, like before then? But there's pictures of me literally in my diaper and with my little ruffled shorts on or whatever, and I got my arms up and I'm moving around, or, you know, so I've been dancing since I was that young, but I didn't start taking it seriously to the point of being like, hey, this is what I want to do, and I want to get serious about it, till I was like maybe 15. But I always danced. Yeah.
Is there a specific dance style you gravitate towards when teaching?
Yes. I like to fuse stuff together. So for me, with me, you're always going to get a fusion between African, the diaspora, which is like stuff related to Afro-Cuban, you know, and also house dancing, modern, and hip hop. And I love those fused together. But mainly, I feel like a lot of things, or mainly everything, is rooted in the diaspora. So I always go there first. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
The last question is, what advice would you give someone who wants to express themselves through dance?
I would say take a chance. It can be a little nerve-wracking, you know, but even say, for instance, if you didn't want to move, what do you like to move to? Like, and I'll tell my students that even in the car, like, what do you listen to? Like, and just move in your house, get in your mirror. I mean, people make jokes about that, but I literally have like 3 mirrors stacked up so I can dance in front of the mirror, or I have one in my little sink area. And, you know, I just get in the mirror, and it's not even just about seeing yourself, but I think it is important that you see yourself. I remember an actress saying one time that I heard her say, you can't change anything you don't want to see, or that you don't want to look at, you know? And so for me, yeah, look at yourself and see yourself, but just take a chance dancing around. But go ahead and take a class. I feel like right now we're in a time where there's plenty of things online. I mean, they got so many classes on YouTube where it's like a full-on class. Like, you could just search it and look. I didn't have that. You know what I mean? Like that so it was like, if you didn't go take class, you were dancing in your room, or you looking at a video or something like that, Michael Jackson, anybody, you know. But I would just say, take a class. And these days you can log on to a Zoom class and keep your camera off. You know what I mean? And when you feel bold, turn it on and allow people to see you. But Yeah, there's plenty of opportunities. If you don't want nobody to see you, go to YouTube. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Professor Ott, for the profound
You're
insight
welcome.
into Fragile. Your work has shown us that we can be powerful and fragile, and we can take ownership of our own healing. I would like to thank the audience for joining us tonight and for the insightful questions. They were really good.
Yeah.
Lastly, is there anything that you are currently working on that you would like to like plug or pub?
I'm just playing. Actually, for me, like I said, Fragile is just a seed. I want to do a lot more work with it. I want to have a live performance of not particularly the video, but bring in some of my fellow dancers and artists that I would want to collaborate with to create an experience. And so that's some of the stuff I'm working on right now, working on doing a podcast to continue something called Fragile Conversations, where I can continue these conversations in different ways with women of color. And I'm getting even more into film and photography with dance and different things lately. And so I feel like even I want to delve into that, the authenticity of being vulnerable through film and photography, and yeah, even deeper. So yeah, that's what I'm working on right now.
Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
I'm going to hand it back over to Amanat before we end.
Thank you so much for talking with us, even if it was just for a brief time period than I was expecting. It was truly, truly awesome. And you're just such a wonderful person, a leader, and a teacher, all in one. And I would just like to thank the audience for attending. And I guess my final words would be stay safe and be kind to each other. Right.